Qur'an, chapter 65, Surah At-Talaq by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, O Prophet, when you and the believers divorce women, divorce them at a time when their waiting period can properly commence, and count the waiting period and be mindful of God, your sustainer. Do not expel them from their homes, nor should they leave on their own, unless they are guilty of manifest indecency. These are the limits set by God, and whoever transgresses the bounds set by God has indeed wronged his own soul. You do not know, perhaps God will bring about some new situation thereafter, and when they have fulfilled their waiting period, either retain them in a fair manner or separate from them in a fair manner. And call to witness 2 just men from among yourselves, and establish the testimony for God. This is enjoined upon whoever believes in God and the last day. And whosoever is conscious of God, he will make for him a way out, and he will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever places his trust in God, he alone is sufficient for him. Indeed, God brings his command to pass. Verily, God has set a measure for all things. As for those of your women who have despaired of menstruation, if you doubt, their waiting period is 3 months, as well as for those who have not yet menstruated. As for those who are pregnant, their term shall be until they deliver their burdens. And whoever is conscious of God, he will make his affair easy for him. That is the command of God which he has sent down to you. And whoever is conscious of God, he will remove his misdeeds from him and magnify his reward. Let them dwell where you dwell, in accordance with your means, and do not harass them to make things difficult for them. And if they are pregnant, then spend on them until they deliver their burdens. And if they breastfeed your child, pay them for it, and consult together in kindness. But if you find it difficult to agree, then another woman may breastfeed the child. Let the man of wealth spend from his wealth, and let him whose provision is restricted spend from what God has given him. God does not burden any soul beyond what he has given it. God will bring ease after hardship. And how many a village rebelled against the command of its sustainer and his messengers? So we called it to account with a severe reckoning and punished it with a shocking punishment. And it tasted the evil consequence of its affair, and the end of its affair was loss. God has prepared for them a severe punishment. So be conscious of God, O people of understanding who have believed. God has indeed sent down to you a reminder, a messenger who recites to you the clear revelations of God, that he may bring forth those who believe and do righteous deeds from the depths of darkness into light. And whoever believes in God and does righteous deeds, he will admit him into gardens beneath which rivers flow, to abide therein forever. Indeed, God has granted him an excellent provision. God is he who created 7 heavens, and of the earth the like thereof. His command descends between them, that you may know that God is over all things powerful, and that God encompasses all things in knowledge. This is Surah At-Talaq. Here God explains his commandments, expounding upon matters that were not detailed in the other surah, Surah Al-Baqarah, which also contains some rulings on divorce. In this surah, God lays down the rules for the consequences that follow divorce, particularly in regard to family matters. Among these is the instruction regarding the moment at which a divorce, acceptable to God and in accordance with his way, may take place. O Prophet, when you and the believers divorce women, divorce them at a time when their waiting period can properly commence. Moreover, the surah establishes the rights and obligations of a divorced woman, stipulating that she is to remain in her house, the house of her husband, during her waiting period. She is not to leave, nor is she to be driven out, unless she commits an act of manifest indecency. Do not expel them from their homes, nor should they leave on their own, unless they are guilty of manifest indecency. The surah also addresses her right to leave after the waiting period has passed, provided that her husband has not taken her back. If he does take her back during the waiting period, it must be done in a just manner, not to harm or delay her from remarrying, but out of a genuine desire to restore the marital relationship in kindness. And when they have fulfilled their waiting period, either retain them in a fair manner or separate from them in a fair manner. This must be done in the presence of two just witnesses, and call to witness two just men from among yourselves. In Surah Al-Baqarah, the waiting period for a menstruating woman is defined as 3 menstrual cycles or 3 periods of purity between menstruations, according to differing legal opinions. Here, the waiting period for a woman who has ceased menstruating, as well as for a young girl who has not yet menstruated, is clarified. As for those of your women who have despaired of menstruation, if you doubt, their waiting period is 3 months, as well as for those who have not yet menstruated. The waiting period for a pregnant woman is also defined, and as for those who are pregnant, their term shall be until they deliver their burdens. The surah then elaborates on the matter of the dwelling in which the waiting period is to be observed, and the financial obligations of the husband toward his pregnant wife until she gives birth. Let them dwell where you dwell, in accordance with your means, and do not harass them to make things difficult for them. And if they are pregnant, then spend on them until they deliver their burdens. It also addresses the issue of breastfeeding, should the divorced woman nurse the child after its birth, and the payment due to her for this service. It encourages mutual consultation between the parents to ensure the well-being of the child. If an agreement cannot be reached, another woman may breastfeed the child. And if they breastfeed your child, pay them for it, and consult together in kindness. But if you find it difficult to agree, then another woman may breastfeed the child. The surah further elaborates on the financial provisions to be made in all circumstances, stipulating that these should be in accordance with the husband's means. Let the man of wealth spend from his wealth, and let him whose provision is restricted spend from what God has given him. God does not burden any soul beyond what he has given it. Thus, the verses meticulously address every situation and its consequences, leaving nothing unresolved. They provide precise rulings with both compassion and clarity. The human soul is left in awe by the attention given to these matters in this surah, with its repeated exhortations and warnings, its reminders of God's power over the heavens and the earth, and the promises of ease for those who fear him. The recurring emphasis on kindness, leniency and mutual agreement, alongside the encouragement to seek goodness, is striking. There is also a constant reminder of God's power over creation, sustenance and the bringing of ease after hardship. One stands amazed before this surah, which addresses the rulings of divorce and its consequences, while simultaneously linking those rulings to the grandest truths of faith, both cosmic and personal. This is a surah entirely devoted to regulating a situation of dissolution, not of construction, a situation of ending, not of beginning. Yet, in its scope and seriousness, it seems greater than the founding of a state. What does this indicate? It carries several profound implications, all of which point to the elevated nature of this religion and its origin beyond the human realm. Even if there were no other indication, the existence of this surah alone would suffice to demonstrate that truth. First and foremost, it highlights the immense significance of the family in the Islamic system. Islam is a family-oriented system. The home, in its view, is a sanctuary and a place of refuge where souls meet in affection, mercy, sympathy and kindness. Within its shelter, children grow and mature, and from it emerge bonds of mercy and ties of mutual support. Thus, Islam portrays the familial relationship in a delicate, tender light, radiating with compassion and shaded with tranquility. And among his signs is that he created for you spouses from among yourselves, that you may find tranquility in them, and he has placed between you affection and mercy. They are a garment for you, and you are a garment for them. It is a connection of soul to soul, of peace and stability, of affection and mercy, of covering and beauty. One feels in the very words a sense of tenderness and gentleness, as though inhaling the fragrance of a flower or resting in the cool shade. It is a perfect expression of the true bond that Islam envisages for this gentle and intimate human relationship. At the same time, it takes into consideration all the purposes of this bond, including the continuation of life through offspring, granting those purposes a character of purity and seriousness, and harmonizing their various aspects. This is reflected in the verse, "Your wives are a tillage for you." It also considers the meaning of fertility and abundance. Islam surrounds this unit, the family, or this sanctuary, with all its care and all its guarantees. True to the comprehensive nature of Islam, it does not rely solely on spiritual inclinations, but follows them with legal regulations and legislative guarantees. The one who studies the family laws in the Qur'an and the Sunnah in all their aspects and for every situation, and looks at the accompanying guidance, the evident concern for these matters, and the direct connection of this issue with God in every instance, will fully appreciate the significance of the family in the Islamic system and the value of this institution before God. This is reflected in the connection between piety toward God and piety toward kinship at the beginning of Surah An-Nisa. O mankind, be conscious of your sustainer who created you from a single soul and created from it its mate, and from the two spread many men and women. And be conscious of God through whom you ask one another, and be mindful of the ties of kinship. Likewise, in Surah Al-Isra, worship of God is coupled with goodness toward parents. Your sustainer has decreed that you worship none but him and to be kind to parents. In Surah Luqman, gratitude to God is linked with gratitude to parents. Give thanks to me and to your parents. This extraordinary concern for the family is in harmony with the divine decree that established human life on the foundation of the family. God's decree ordained that the first unit in human existence would be the family of Adam and his spouse, and that humankind would multiply from this original unit. God could have created millions of human beings at once if he had willed. But his decree was carried out in this manner for a profound wisdom inherent in the grand role of the family in the life of this creature. The family fulfills the human being's nature and potential, nurtures his personality and virtues, and exerts the deepest influence on his life. This divine care continued within the Islamic system, God's final guidance on earth, in perfect harmony with the divine decree in the creation of humankind from the very beginning. The second implication of this surah, and the emphasis placed on marital and familial relations throughout the Qur'an, is Islam's profound intention to elevate these human relationships to the level of sacredness connected to God. It sees them as a means for spiritual purification and emotional refinement, unlike the view of such matters in pagan beliefs or among followers of corrupted religions, who have deviated from the natural disposition upon which God created mankind. Islam does not fight against natural instincts, nor does it regard them with disgust. Rather, it organizes them, purifies them, and raises them above the animalistic level, refining them until they become the axis around which much of personal and social etiquette revolves. It establishes sexual relations on a foundation of elevated human emotions, transforming the meeting of two bodies into the meeting of two souls, two hearts, and two spirits. In a broader sense, it is the meeting of two human beings, bound together by a shared life, shared hopes, shared sorrows, and a shared future, one that is anticipated in the new generation that will grow in the shared nest, guarded by parents who are inseparable. Islam regards marriage as a means for purification and elevation, and thus calls upon the Muslim community to facilitate marriage for its men and women if financial constraints stand in the way of achieving this necessary means for purifying and uplifting life. Marry those among you who are single, and the righteous among your male and female slaves. If they are poor, God will enrich them out of his bounty, for God is infinite in his bounty, all-knowing. And let those who cannot find the means for marriage remain chaste until God enriches them out of his bounty. It refers to marriage as ihsan, protection and preservation, and it becomes ingrained in the believer's heart that remaining without this protection, even for a short time, does not earn God's pleasure. Imam Ali, may God be pleased with him, hastened to marry after the death of his wife Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, and said, "I feared that I would meet God while I was unmarried." Thus, marriage, in the understanding of the believer, is an act of devotion through which he seeks to draw nearer to his sustainer. This bond is elevated to a place of sacredness in his conscience, for it is one of the acts of devotion to his sustainer. The third indication derived from the context of Surah Al-Talaq and its counterparts is the realism of this Islamic system, which deals with life and the human soul as they are, in their inherent nature, while simultaneously striving to elevate them to that noble plane through their innate capabilities and the circumstances of their lives. Thus, it does not suffice with precise legislation in matters entrusted to the conscience, nor does it rely solely on guidance. Rather, it employs both in addressing the realities of the soul and the realities of life. The foundation of the marital bond is stability and continuity. Islam surrounds this bond with every guarantee that ensures its stability and endurance. To that end, it raises this bond to the level of acts of worship, supports its establishment with state resources for the poor and the needy, and lays down moral rules that prevent public display and temptation, so that emotions may rest and hearts may not be swayed by the allure of brazen display in the markets. Islam prescribes the punishment for adultery and slander and preserves the sanctity of homes through the requirement of seeking permission to enter them, even among their own inhabitants. It organizes marital ties with a clearly defined law, establishing the household upon the leadership of one of the partners, the one more capable of leadership, to prevent disorder, chaos and conflict, alongside many other guarantees and regulations that protect from any disturbance, all in addition to emotional guidance and the constant linking of this relationship to the consciousness of God and His ever-watchful presence. Yet the realities of human life confirm that there are cases where the marital bond collapses and shatters despite all the guarantees and guidance. These cases must be addressed in a practical manner, acknowledging the realities of life that cannot be denied when marital life becomes impossible, and when holding on to the marriage becomes a futile exercise devoid of any foundation. Islam does not hasten to sever the sacred marital tie at the first sign of discord. It holds fast to this bond, not allowing it to slip away except after attempts have been made and hope has been lost. Islam calls out to men, "And live with them in kindness, for if you dislike them, it may be that you dislike something, and God brings about through it much good." This encouragement to patience and forbearance, even in a state of dislike, opens a window of possibility. It may be that you dislike something, and God brings about through it much good. How do they know that in these women, whom they dislike, there may lie much good, that God may be preparing for them this good? Therefore, they must not let it slip away. Indeed, they ought to hold on to it and cherish it. There is no more eloquent way than this to rekindle emotional tenderness, to stir up affection, to tame dislike, and to extinguish its flames. But if the issue has gone beyond love and dislike to rebellion and aversion, divorce is not the first solution that Islam proposes. Rather, there must first be an attempt made by others and a reconciliation effort by well-intentioned people. And if you fear a breach between the two, send an arbitrator from his people and an arbitrator from her people. If they both desire reconciliation, God will bring harmony between them. Indeed, God is knowing and acquainted. And if a woman fears from her husband disdain or aversion, there is no blame upon them if they make terms of settlement between them, and settlement is best. If this mediation fails, then the matter is indeed serious, and there exists a situation in which life cannot continue peacefully and stability cannot be maintained. Holding on to the marriage in such a state is but a futile attempt, one that only increases the failure with more pressure. Wisdom, therefore, lies in acknowledging reality and ending this life, though Islam dislikes divorce, for as it is said, the most hated of permissible things to God is divorce. Thus, if a man wishes to divorce, he cannot do so at just any moment. Rather, it should occur during a period of purity in which no sexual relations have taken place. This delay prevents the severance of the bond in the heat of anger or impulse. During this period of waiting, hearts may soften, and God may bring about reconciliation between the estranged couple, preventing the divorce from taking place. After that comes the waiting period, the iddah. 3 menstrual cycles for women who menstruate, 3 months for women who have ceased menstruating or are too young, and until childbirth for pregnant women. During this time, there remains the opportunity for reconciliation if feelings of affection are rekindled. and there is a desire to resume the marital relationship that had been severed. But all of these efforts do not negate the reality that separation may occur, and there are cases that must be dealt with in a practical and realistic manner. Thus, Islamic law lays down precise, detailed rulings for such situations, demonstrating the realism of this religion in its approach to life, while always pushing it forward and elevating it to the heavens. The fourth indication from this surah, with all its exhortations, warnings, details, and emphatic instructions, is that it was addressing real situations within the early Muslim community, situations that were remnants of the pre-Islamic era, during which women faced hardship and oppression. This necessitated the strictness, the heavy psychological influences, and the detailed rulings that left no room for manipulation or deviation. These measures were in response to deeply ingrained attitudes about gender relations and the disorder and chaos in family life. This was not unique to the Arabian Peninsula. It was a situation that prevailed across the world at that time. Everywhere on earth, the status of women was akin to that of slaves, or even worse. In addition, sexual relations were viewed with disgust, and women were seen as temptresses, luring men into filth. From this global abyss, Islam raised women and marital relations to that noble, pure, and dignified level that has already been mentioned. It granted women value, respect, rights, and protections. Women were no longer buried alive nor humiliated. They were given the right to consent to marriage, whether virgins or previously married, and as wives they were entitled to care and protection as guaranteed by the law. Even in divorce they were given rights, as detailed in this surah and in Surah Al-Baqarah, among others. Islam established all of this not because women in the Arabian Peninsula or elsewhere in the world at that time felt their status was unsatisfactory, nor because men were dissatisfied with the situation of women, nor because there was an Arab or global women's union advocating for change, nor because women had entered the political assemblies or councils, nor because any voice on earth had called for a change in the status quo. Rather, it was the law of heaven for the earth, the justice of heaven for the earth, and the will of heaven for the earth, that human life should rise from that abyss, that marital relations should be purified from that stain, and that both husband and wife, formed from a single soul, should enjoy the rights and dignity of human beings. This is a noble religion, and only the spiritually blind would turn away from it. Only the morally inverted would disparage it. Only the depraved would wage war against it. For no one abandons God's law in favor of human law except one who clings to the earth and follows his own desires. Now let us examine the rulings in the context of the surah. After this brief digression, which is not far removed from the atmosphere of this section and its role in organizing and building the Muslim community. The rulings within the context of the surah are something other than mere summaries. They are alive, full of spirit, movement, and life. They inspire and resonate. And this is the essential difference between studying rulings in the Qur'an and studying them in books of jurisprudence and legal theory. O Prophet, when you and the believers divorce women, divorce them at a time when their waiting period can properly commence, and count the waiting period, and be conscious of God, your sustainer. Do not expel them from their homes, nor should they leave on their own, unless they are guilty of manifest indecency. These are the limits set by God, and whoever transgresses the bounds set by God has indeed wronged his own soul. You do not know. Perhaps God will bring about some new situation thereafter. This is the first stage, and this is the first ruling addressed directly to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, O Prophet. Then it becomes clear that the ruling applies to all Muslims, not just to him personally, when you all divorce women. This manner of expression hints at deeper meanings. It arouses attention and conveys a sense of gravity. It is a matter of great importance as God calls upon his prophet by name to convey his command, and then extends that command to the entire community. These psychological cues are clear in their purpose, signaling the seriousness and significance of what is being addressed. Divorce them at a time when their waiting period can properly commence. The meaning of this verse has been clarified in an authentic hadith recorded by Al-Bukhari. The wording is as follows. Yahya ibn Bukayr narrated to us, saying, Al-Layth narrated to me, saying, Abdullah ibn Umar mentioned this to the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, and the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, became angry. He said, let him take her back, then keep her until she becomes pure, then menstruates and becomes pure again. Then, if he wishes to divorce her, let him divorce her in a state of purity before touching her. That is the waiting period that God has commanded for the divorce of women. This narration is also reported by Muslim with the wording, that is the waiting period that God has commanded for the divorce of women. From this, it is clear that there is a specific time for a valid divorce to take place. A husband may not divorce his wife whenever he pleases, except when she is in a state of purity from menstruation and they have not had sexual relations during that period. Other narrations indicate that there is a second permissible time for divorce, which is when the wife is visibly pregnant. The wisdom behind this timing is, first, to delay the divorce after the moment of anger or emotional upheaval, as the passing of time may calm tempers and restore harmony. Additionally, it ensures clarity regarding whether or not the wife is pregnant. A husband may refrain from divorcing his wife if he learns that she is pregnant. If he proceeds with the divorce despite knowing of her pregnancy, it indicates his firm intention to separate regardless of the pregnancy. Thus, the requirement of purity without sexual relations is to confirm the absence of pregnancy, and the requirement of visible pregnancy is to ensure that the husband is fully aware of the situation. This is the first attempt to repair the cracks in the family structure, an effort to prevent the tool of divorce from demolishing that structure. This doesn't mean that divorce cannot occur at other times. Divorce is valid whenever it takes place, but it is displeasing to God and incurs His messenger's disapproval if it is done outside the prescribed times. This ruling is sufficient for a believer's conscience to hold on to it until the appointed time, allowing God to decide the matter. And count the waiting period. This is to ensure that the waiting period is neither extended unnecessarily, which would harm the divorced woman by preventing her from remarrying, nor shortened, which would fail to fulfill the primary purpose of confirming the absence of pregnancy and protecting lineage. Moreover, this precise calculation suggests the seriousness of the matter, implying that it is being carefully monitored by the heavens and that those involved are required to handle it with great precision. And be conscious of God, your sustainer. Do not expel them from their homes, nor should they leave on their own unless they are guilty of manifest indecency. This is the first warning after the initial call, the first reminder of God's consciousness before issuing the command not to expel women from their homes during the waiting period. These homes are referred to as their homes, although they belong to their husbands, to emphasize the women's right to reside there during this period. They are not to leave, nor should they be expelled, except in cases of clear immorality. This immorality could refer to adultery, which would require the woman to be removed from the home to face the prescribed punishment. It could also refer to causing harm to the husband's family, or rebelling against the husband even though she is divorced, by doing things that harm him. The wisdom behind keeping the divorced woman in the husband's house is to allow for the possibility of reconciliation, to stir up feelings of affection, and to rekindle memories of the shared life. The woman is distant due to the divorce but still close physically, and this proximity may influence emotions and bring about reconciliation. However, if she falls into the filth of adultery while in his house, or if she harms his family or rebels against him, there is no reason to try to rekindle positive emotions or stir up hidden affection. In such cases, there is no need to keep her during the waiting period, for her closeness would only sever ties rather than revive them. These are the limits set by God, and whoever transgresses the bounds set by God has indeed wronged his own soul. This is the second warning. God himself is the guardian of this ruling, so what believer would dare to violate a limit guarded by God? It is utter ruin and destruction. Whoever transgresses the bounds set by God has indeed wronged his own soul. He wrongs himself by exposing it to the wrath of God, who watches over his boundaries and protects them. He wrongs himself by wronging his wife, who is, after all, part of his own soul. What harms her harms him as well. You do not know. Perhaps God will bring about some new situation thereafter. This is an evocative, inspiring touch. Who knows what God's decree holds? Who knows what is hidden in God's wisdom behind the command for the waiting period, behind the command that divorced women should remain in their homes? There is always hope on the horizon. There is always a glimmer of possibility. Perhaps the situation will change for the better. Perhaps things will turn around, bringing joy and contentment. God's decree is ever in motion, ever changing, ever creating new circumstances. Submission to God's command is wiser, observing it more appropriate, and fearing Him brings goodness. There is hope on the horizon. The human soul may become so absorbed in the present moment with its circumstances and conditions that it closes off the future, living in the prison of the present, believing it to be eternal, unchanging, and that its current conditions will follow it forever. This is a psychological prison that often wears down the nerves, but this is not the truth. God's decree is always at work, always changing, always creating new circumstances and conditions. Relief follows hardship, ease follows difficulty, expansion follows constriction. Every day, God manifests His will to creation, revealing what was once hidden behind the veil. God wants this truth to settle deep in the hearts of human beings, so that their hope in what God will bring remains ever renewed and continuous. The doors of hope for change must remain open, and their souls must remain alive with hope and refreshed with anticipation. No door should be closed, and they should not live in the prison of the present. The next moment may bring what was never expected. You do not know. Perhaps God will bring about some new situation thereafter. And when they have fulfilled their waiting period, either retain them in a fair manner or separate from them in a fair manner. And call to witness 2 just men from among yourselves, and establish the testimony for God. This is enjoined upon whoever believes in God and the last day. And whoever is conscious of God, He will make for him a way out, and He will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever places his trust in God, He alone is sufficient for him. Indeed, God brings His command to pass. Verily, God has set a measure for all things. And this is the second stage, and this is its ruling. The conclusion of the waiting period, Iddah, marks the end of the final stage. As long as the woman is still within her Iddah, regardless of its various durations as previously explained, the husband may take her back, and she will return to his protection simply by his revocation of the divorce. This is what is meant by keeping her. Or he may allow the Iddah to pass, and she will be separated from him, permissible to him only through a new contract, as if she were a new wife. Whether he chooses to revoke the divorce or to part ways, he is commanded to act with kindness in both circumstances. He is forbidden from using the revocation to cause her harm, such as revoking the divorce just before the end of the Iddah, only to later divorce her again and then again a third time, thereby prolonging her confinement without marriage. Or he may revoke the divorce only to leave her in a state of limbo, tormenting her so that she seeks to ransom herself from him. Such practices were common at the time this surah was revealed and continue to occur whenever hearts deviate from the fear of God. This fear is the first safeguard for His laws regarding relationships and separations. Likewise, He is forbidden from causing harm in separation, such as through insults, harsh words, or anger. This bond is formed with kindness and should end with kindness, preserving the affection in hearts that may lead to a reunion, without being marred by painful memories of harsh words or stinging jibes, or any bitterness that may cloud its purity should the couple reunite. This is the pure Islamic etiquette that governs both tongue and heart. In both cases, whether separation or revocation, witnesses are required. 2 just witnesses are to be called to remove any suspicion. People may know of the divorce but be unaware of the revocation, leading to doubts and gossip. Islam desires clarity and purity in these relationships, as it does in the hearts and words of people alike. Some jurists hold that revocation or separation can occur without witnesses, but others insist it must be witnessed. However, There is consensus that witnesses must be present either after or during the process of separation or revocation, according to both opinions. Following the explanation of the ruling, admonitions and exhortations follow in quick succession. For the matter is God's affair, and testimony in it is for God. He commands it, watches over its integrity, and rewards it. The dealings in this matter are not between husband and wife or the people, they are with God alone. The addressees of these rulings are the believers, those who affirm the last day. Thus he says to them that he is admonishing them with what pertains to their own affairs. If they are true in their belief in him and the last day, then surely they will take heed and be mindful. This is the test of their faith, the measure of their claim to belief, a way out of hardship in both this world and the hereafter, and sustenance from sources one could not foresee or anticipate. This is a general statement, a timeless truth, but its placement here in the context of divorce rulings suggests its precise relevance and fulfillment when the God-conscious act with piety in this particular matter. It is a matter where no safeguard is more effective or accurate than the safeguard of conscience and inner awareness. For in such matters the scope for deception is vast, and only the fear of God and the sensitivity of the heart can prevent abuse. For in this relationship, the avenues for scheming are many, and its pathways are numerous. Attempting to avoid being manipulated may itself lead to manipulation. Thus, there is a suggestion here to abandon such attempts and to rely on God, for he is sufficient for the one who relies on him. God will accomplish his decree. Whatever he has decreed shall come to pass, and whatever he wills shall be, for reliance on him is reliance on the power of the all-powerful, the force of the Almighty, the one who does what he wills and accomplishes what he wishes. The statement is general, yet its mention here in the context of divorce carries a specific implication and impact. Everything is measured by its due proportion, by its time, by its place, by its circumstances, by its results and causes. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing occurs in vain in this entire universe or in the life of a single human being. This is a profound truth, forming a significant aspect of the Islamic worldview. We have discussed this at length when reviewing his words. And he created everything and measured it precisely in Surah Al-Furqan. And his words, "Indeed, we created everything according to a measure," in Surah Al-Qamar. However, the mention of this comprehensive truth here connects it with what God has decreed regarding divorce and its period, the waiting period and its duration, and the requirement for testimony. It imbues these rulings with the mark of God's universal law, his all-encompassing decree. It impresses upon the heart that this is a matter of utmost seriousness, aligned with the cosmic order God has ordained in all his creation. This specifies the waiting period for women who no longer menstruate and for those who are pregnant. It includes those whose menstruation has ceased and those who have not yet menstruated due to youth or some other cause. The waiting period mentioned earlier in Surah Al-Baqarah applies to menstruating women, either 3 menstrual cycles or 3 periods of purity between the cycles, depending on the scholarly interpretation. But for those whose menstruation has ceased, or who have never menstruated, how should their waiting period be calculated? This verse removes any ambiguity, specifying 3 months for both categories, as they share the condition of lacking menstruation, which typically determines the waiting period for others. As for pregnant women, their waiting period lasts until they give birth, whether the time after divorce is long or short, even if it is only 40 days, the period of postnatal bleeding, because the womb's emptiness is confirmed by childbirth and there is no need to wait. Once the child is born, the woman is separated from her husband, and there is no reason to delay this separation. She cannot return to him except by a new contract in any case. And God has set a measure for everything, so there is no ruling without wisdom behind it. This is the ruling, and following it comes the gentle touches and reminders. Ease in one's affairs is the ultimate aspiration of any human being. Indeed, it is a great favour that God makes a person's matters easy for him. No hardship, no difficulty, no constriction, no distress. He approaches matters with ease in his thoughts and estimations, attains them with ease in his actions and efforts, and accepts them with ease in their outcomes and results. Such a person lives in comfort and tranquility until he meets God. It is as if this is an enticement to pursue ease in the matter of divorce in exchange for ease in the rest of life. This is another gentle reminder, in a different direction. A reminder to take the matter seriously and remain aware of its divine source. God has sent down this command. He has sent it to the believers, and obedience to it is the fulfillment of faith and the realization of the bond between them and God. Then there is a return to the theme of piety, which is repeatedly emphasized in this matter. The first promise is ease in one's affairs, and the second is the expiation of sins and the magnification of reward. This is a magnificent offer, a thrilling incentive. It is a general ruling and a comprehensive promise, but it casts its shadow over the issue of divorce, enveloping the heart with the awareness of God's immense bounty. Why, then, should matters become difficult and complicated when God offers ease, forgiveness, and abundant reward? This is the final clarification regarding the details of lodging during the waiting period and the financial support owed during this time, depending on its duration. The command is to house them according to one's means, no less than what one provides for oneself, within the limits of one's ability. One should not intend to cause harm, whether by restricting the space of the dwelling or lowering its standard, or by any mistreatment within it. Pregnant women are specifically mentioned regarding financial support, though support is required for all women in their waiting period, because one might mistakenly assume that the long duration of pregnancy only necessitates support for part of that time and not the entire period, or that support should increase if the pregnancy is shorter. The verse clarifies that support is due until the pregnancy concludes, which is also the end of the waiting period, thereby providing additional legislative clarity. Then the issue of nursing is addressed. The verse does not obligate the mother to nurse without compensation. Since the child belongs to both parents, the mother has the right to be compensated for nursing, as this enables her to sustain her life and ensures the production of milk for the child. This is the ultimate consideration for the mother in this blessed law. At the same time, the verse commands both the father and mother to consult with each other in kindness, ensuring that the child's best interest is the priority, as the child is an entrusted responsibility between them. The failure of their marriage should not become a disaster for the innocent child. This is the ease to which God calls the couple. However, if they cannot come to an agreement regarding nursing and its payment, the child's rights are still protected, and another woman will nurse the child. The mother cannot object, and the child's right to be nursed will not be delayed due to their disagreement after the failure of their marriage. The extent of financial support is then detailed. It is a matter of ease, cooperation, and justice. The husband should not be excessive, nor should the wife be obstinate. Whoever has been granted abundance by God should spend accordingly, whether regarding housing, living expenses, or payment for nursing. Whoever has been restricted in his provision should spend within his means, for God does not burden a soul beyond what he has provided. He is the giver, and no one can obtain more than what God has given. There is no source of provision other than his, no treasury other than his. Then comes the touch of reassurance and the opening of hope for both the husband and the wife. Relief after difficulty, ease after hardship, it all depends on God. The couple should entrust the matter entirely to him, turning to him in all things, for he is the giver and the withholder, the one who grants ease and constricts, whose hand holds both hardship and ease, difficulty and relief, adversity and prosperity. At this point, all the rulings concerning divorce and its consequences have been thoroughly addressed. Every effect of divorce has been followed up to its clear resolution. No rubble or dust remains to fill hearts with confusion or cloud minds with uncertainty. No residual issues have been left untreated. No lingering anxieties left unresolved. Likewise, all the whispers and suspicions that arise in hearts have been addressed, preventing them from embracing generosity, ease and grace in this matter. The spectre of poverty and hardship has been dispelled from the husband's heart if he provides housing and financial support for his ex-wife or the woman nursing his child. The same spectre has been removed from the wife's heart whether she faces difficulty due to the husband's limited means or harbours greed for more of his wealth. The promise of ease after hardship has been reaffirmed for those who fear God, as has the assurance of provision from unexpected sources, and beyond the provision of this world, the reward of the hereafter, an immense reward following the expiation of sins. The emotional residue of conflict and strife that led to divorce has also been treated. Any bitterness, anger, or resentment has been soothed, leaving no trace of rancour or hostility. God's gentle touch has smoothed over all these feelings, breathing his mercy and hope into the hearts of both the husband and wife. The wells of affection and kindness have been opened in their hearts through the gentle reminders of piety, the hope in God's mercy, and the expectation of his pleasure. This comprehensive and thorough treatment, these deep and effective touches, this repeated and firm emphasis on kindness and God consciousness, all of these are the only true guarantees for the proper implementation of the divine law. There is no safeguard except the sensitivity of the conscience and the fear of God in the hearts. Each of the spouses can still manipulate the other to the point of breaking if the only walls between them are the walls of the law. Some of the commands are so flexible that they can accommodate such manipulation. The command to not harm them covers many forms of mistreatment that no legal text can ever fully encompass, regardless of how extensive. The matter is ultimately left to these emotional influences, to the stirring of the conscience, the awareness of God's watch over the heart's secrets, and to the promise of God's reward for the God-fearing, both in this world and the hereafter, especially regarding the matter of provision, which is mentioned repeatedly in various forms, since it is such an important factor in easing the tension and softening the harshness that divorce often brings. Thus, the husband and wife part ways under the shade of these rulings and exhortations, with seeds of affection still present in their hearts, seeds that have not died. There is a tenderness that may yet revive those seeds and cause them to blossom once again. This is all part of the beautiful and refined etiquette that Islam seeks to instill in the life of the Muslim community, permeating it with its fragrance and grace. And so, after the narrative reaches its conclusion, it presents the final lesson regarding the fate of those who arrogantly defied their sustainer's commands and his messengers, refusing to listen or respond. This lesson is hung over their heads like a looming shadow, reminding them of the wretched fate awaiting those who neither fear God nor obey him. It also reminds them of the grace of God bestowed upon the believers addressed in this surah and its laws. This is a long warning, a detailed caution, vividly portraying the scenes of divine retribution. It is also a profound reminder of God's grace through faith and enlightenment and his promise of reward in the hereafter, which is truly the best and most honourable form of sustenance. God's punishment for those who arrogantly defy his commands and refuse to submit to his messengers is a recurring pattern. The details of their punishment, the severe reckoning and the dreadful torment, are followed by a portrayal of their ultimate doom. Then, the image of this ruinous fate is further emphasized in the following verse. All of this serves to prolong the scene and detail its stages, a method often employed in the Quranic style to deepen the impact on the senses and leave a lasting impression on the nerves. Let us pause for a moment before this warning. We see that God seizes one town after another whenever they defy his commands and the messages brought by his messengers. We also find that this warning is given here in connection with the issue of divorce and its rulings, linking the matter of divorce with this overarching divine pattern. This connection suggests that the issue of divorce is not merely a personal or family matter. It is a matter that concerns the entire Muslim community. The community is responsible for this matter, for it is responsible for upholding God's law. Any deviation from God's command regarding divorce, or from any of the other rulings of this divine system, this comprehensive way of life ordained by God, is considered defiance against his command. The consequences of such defiance are not borne solely by the individuals who commit it, but by the community or nation in which the transgression occurs, particularly when the community strays from organizing its life according to God's way and commands. For this religion was revealed to be obeyed and implemented in its entirety to govern all aspects of life. Whoever defies God's command, even in matters concerning individual behavior, exposes themselves to the same fate that befell the towns that defied God's command. A fate that is inevitable according to God's law, which never fails. Those towns tasted the evil consequences of their conduct, and the end of their affair was utter loss. They tasted this loss in this world before the final day of reckoning. Indeed, many towns and nations have suffered this ruin when they defied God's way on earth. We have witnessed it, and our forebears have witnessed it too. They tasted it in the form of corruption, decay, poverty, famine, oppression, tyranny, and a life filled with fear, insecurity, and unrest. Every day we see the fulfillment of this warning, and this is in addition to the severe torment awaiting those who defy God's command and his way of life, as God says, and God is the truest of those who speak. Indeed, this religion is a collective system, as we previously discussed in Surah Al-Saf. It was revealed to establish a Muslim community with a unique system. It came to regulate the entire life of this community. Therefore, the entire community is responsible for it, responsible for its rulings. It must not deviate from these rulings, lest it be subject to the same warning that befell the towns that defied the command of their sustainer and his messengers. In response to this warning and its detailed scenes, the Qur'an calls out to those endowed with understanding, those who have been guided by their intellect to faith, urging them to fear God, who has revealed the reminder. And this reminder is personified and interwoven with the person of the messenger, as the next verse makes clear. Here there is a profoundly creative and truthful implication with multiple meanings. First, this reminder, which has come from God, has reached them through the person of the truthful messenger, as if the reminder itself has been conveyed directly to them, without the person of the messenger acting as a veil between them and the message. Second, the text implies that the messenger's very being has become indistinguishable from the reminder. He is a living embodiment of this reminder, shaped by it until he has become one with it. He is a living translation of the reality of the Qur'an. This is how the messenger of God was, and this is how Aisha Ra described him when she said his character was the Qur'an. This is how the Qur'an manifested itself in his heart as he confronted life, and this is how he lived the Qur'an in his engagement with the world. Beyond the grace of the reminder, the light, the guidance and righteousness, there is also the promise of eternal bliss in the gardens of paradise, where they will dwell forever. This is a reminder that this sustenance is the best of all provisions, incomparable to the sustenance of this world. God is the provider in both this life and the next, but some sustenance is better than others, and God's choice of the best is the true and noble choice. Thus, the notion of sustenance is touched upon once more, and in this reference, the sustenance of the earth is belittled compared to the sustenance of paradise, after the earlier verses promised abundant provision in this world as well. And in conclusion, there comes that awe-inspiring cosmic rhythm, linking the subject of the Surah, its laws, and its guidance to God's omnipotence and knowledge in the vast expanse of the universe. As for the seven heavens, we have no knowledge of their true nature, dimensions, or vastness. And likewise, we have no knowledge of the seven earths. Perhaps this earth we know is one of them, while the rest remain known only to God. Or perhaps the meaning of the like of them refers to the earth being of the same kind as the heavens, sharing some elements of structure or characteristics. In any case, there's no need to try to apply these texts to our current scientific knowledge, for our knowledge does not encompass all of creation for us to say with certainty. This is what the Qur'an means. We will only be able to say that with certainty when humanity has acquired full and certain knowledge of the entire universe, and that is far from likely. Instead, we benefit from the implications of this reference in its psychological and spiritual context, helping to establish a correct faith-based perception of the universe. The reference to this vast universe, seven heavens and seven earths, awakens a sense of awe in the heart, bringing it face to face with a glimpse of the magnitude of the Creator's power and the vastness of his dominion. Compared to this, the entire earth shrinks into insignificance, let alone some trivial matter within it, let alone some incident of divorce or some monetary dispute between husband and wife. Between these 7 heavens and the earth, or the 7 earths, God's command descends. And among these commands is the one being addressed here in this context. This makes it an immense matter, even by human standards of space and time, as far as our understanding allows. To disobey it is to defy a command that reverberates through the heavens and the earth, a defiance that resounds within the higher realms and among the other creatures of God in the heavens and the earth. It is a flagrant rebellion that no sane believer, one who has received a messenger reciting to him the clear revelations of God, would ever commit, especially when the messenger explains this command to him, leading him out of darkness into light. This command descends between the heavens and the earth to establish within the believer's heart the conviction that God is capable of all things, nothing escapes his will, and that he encompasses all things in knowledge, nothing eludes his knowledge, whether it is in his vast dominion or in the hidden recesses of people's hearts. This final touch carries immense significance here for 2 reasons. First, the God who encompasses all things in knowledge is the one who issues these laws. He has revealed them, fully aware of all their circumstances, all their contexts, all their implications, and all their outcomes. Therefore, they are the most deserving of being followed without the slightest hesitation, for they come from the one who knows everything. Second, these particular rulings are entrusted to the conscience, and the awareness of God's all-encompassing knowledge and his intimate understanding of what lies within the hearts is the only true guarantee for the sensitivity of these consciences, for in matters like these, nothing but the fear of God, who knows the secrets of the breasts, can prevent wrongdoing. Thus, the surah concludes with this powerful rhythm, inspiring awe and reverence as it moves the hearts to submission and obedience. Glory be to the Creator of hearts, the one who knows every hidden path within them.